Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 1, Unit 1.7 Notes, Part 1. Today we're going to be talking about absolute value equations. Our learning target today is to be able to solve absolute value equations in one variable. Okay, so let's review. We've already talked about what an absolute value is. Absolute value is the distance a number is from zero. And we all remember that distance is always positive. Now, the symbols for absolute value look like this. They're those really tall lines. Okay. And now let's go through some examples. Okay. Remember that absolute value is the distance a number is from zero. So, -2. How far is -2 from zero? 1, 2. It is exactly 2 spots from zero. Now, what about the absolute value of a +2? That was -2. How far is +2 from zero? 1, 2. Okay, so there are two different ways that we can get +2. What about the absolute value of 0? How many spots away is that? Well, hopefully you're saying 0. It's right there. It doesn't have to move. And then what about the absolute value of 1/2? Okay, even decimals or fractions, just whatever it is, that's how far it is. Okay? So let's work on evaluating absolute value expressions. For number 1, it says, what is the absolute value of -6? Well, how far away is -6 from 0? It's exactly 6 spaces. Okay, what about the absolute value of -64? Well, it is exactly 64 spaces from 0. Now number 3. We have to be very careful because when we see that negative sign out front, that means the opposite. Okay, so what is the opposite of the absolute value of a -2/3? Well, the absolute value of -2/3 is 2/3, but I want the opposite of that, so that means it's going to be negative. Okay? All right, problem number 4. Let's go ahead and zoom in and take a look at it. The first thing that we want to do is to plug in for x. Let's see, we got a y and we have a w. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to plug all those values in. We got -20 -5 -2 times -3 plus 6. Okay, so we're going to do what's inside the absolute values first. So -20 -5 gives us -25 minus the absolute value of 2 times -3 is -6 plus 6. Okay, so now we can start to do all this. The absolute value of -25 is 25. Remember, the symbol just comes straight down. The absolute value of 6 is 6 plus 6. Okay? And when we add those all up, you can either use your calculator or by hand. You should get a grand total of 25. All right, number 5. Why don't you guys pause the video and see if you can do that one all on your own. Good luck. All right, did you guys make it this far? Just remember, with this -7 that we've got right here, when we take the absolute value of it, that turns into multiplication. Okay, and so we get 4 times 7 is 28. And then 28 minus 9 gives us a grand total of 19. Okay, so that was our nice little warm-up and review. Now, When we're solving absolute value equations, did you know that there are 3 possibilities for solutions? Now, the reason that is let's look at each one, okay? Looking at our first one, the absolute value of x equals a -2. Think about that. Without changing the problem, can there ever be a solution to that? Okay? And the answer is no, and that's because distance isn't negative. Okay? So one of the answers that we could have to something, it could be no solution. Okay, that's the first one that we can have. Now, x equals the absolute, or what is the absolute value? When does that equal 0? Well, we did an example of that earlier. The only time that that happens is when we've got 0 right here, because there's only one answer. X can only equal 0. So when that happens, we only have one solution. Okay, in our next example, the absolute value of x equals 2, we said, well, 2 works, but the other answer that works is -2. Okay, so there are going to be some of these that we have 2 solutions. And what that really depends on is what it equals. Okay, and we're going to have to take a look at that in each problem. Each problem it's going to be different. Okay, so let's zoom in and take a look. We have, it says solve the absolute value equations. What is the absolute value when it equals 8? So you need to think, are we going to have one solution, no solutions, 2 solutions? Well, looking at that right there, that tells me that we're going to have 2 solutions. So what number can we plug in to get those answers? Well, we could plug in a +8 or what? A -8. And the way that we would write our answers, we would say that x equals, in order from least to greatest, -8 or 8. Whenever we put that little comma down, that means or. All right, number 7. Looking at our answer, how many are we going to have? 1, 2, none? We're going to have 2 solutions, okay? So you need to think, what number can we plug in there to get that answer? Well, we can plug in a -3.7 or a +3.7. And remember, we write our answers from least to greatest, so x equals -3.7 or 3.7. Look at number 8. Okay, it's saying -11. Can we have that? No, that's one of the things that we talked about earlier. Okay, when it equals a negative, there's no solution to that. And we had a discussion in class about this, where one of the students is like, well, I know that this is what the problem is, but I could change it and put a negative outside. Well, yes, if you change it, you can say that, well, we've got our 2 answers right there. The only problem is we can't change a problem. We have to say what it starts with, and we have to keep it that way. Okay? So since I can't come in here and draw that negative sign, we have to just say what the problem has, and the problem is saying that there's no solution to that. Okay? All right. Why don't you guys try 9, 10, and 11 on your own and see how you do. Good luck. Okay, and there you go. So for number 9, we had two solutions, x equals -1/8 and +1/8. For 10, there's a negative outside. Did you guys see that? Okay, so no solution. And then whenever x equals 0, we can only have one answer. And for this one, it was actually 0. Okay? All right, so we've got a little reminder. Okay, a little cheat sheet that you guys can do. Now, if an absolute value equals a negative, okay, that's like problem 10 or problem 8. If it equals a negative, it has no solutions. Okay, now, if an absolute value equals 0, okay, like problem 11, it has one solution. And then the other ones, if an absolute value equals a positive, this makes it look like an O, a positive, it has two solutions. Okay, so if it's negative, it's no solution. If it's 0, it's one solution. And if it's positive, it has two solutions. And we talked about a little reminder that we could write about that, okay? So if it's a negative, okay, that means it has no solution, okay? And we talked about that. N, the negative, starts with an N, and so does no. Okay, so no solution. All right? If it's a 0, okay? 0 right there looks like the nice number, the first letter, 1, okay? So if you see 0, that means it's one solution, okay? And our last one, if it's positive, what letter does the positive symbol looks like? It looks like the beginning of a T, okay? So that's how you know when you have two solutions, okay? If you need to write that down, pause the video, write it down. Otherwise, we are flipping it over to the other side of the notes. Okay, so we have an example of no solution, one solution, and two solutions. For number 1, and the first one, there is no answer that we can put in because there's a negative on the outside. So right away, you should be like, yo, no solution. All right, in our next example, we know that there's going to be one solution, but what number is that? What number plus 1 equals 0? Okay, if you're having trouble figuring that out, we can just go straight into algebra and solve it. Okay, subtract 1 to both sides, and we get x equals -1. And now in our next one, notice that it's positive, okay? And we said when it's positive, it could have two solutions. And the way to figure that out, if you take what's inside and that stays 100% the same, we do not change it, okay? But we know that it could either equal a +2 or a -2. And then once we're done with that, we solve it like any other problem, okay? We subtract the 1 to both sides, and we get x equals -3. And on the other side, we subtract 1, and we get that x equals 1. So the way we would write our answers to that, since we have 2, is x equals -3 or 1. Okay, so it really depends on the problem what we need to do, and those are examples of all three cases. Okay, so let's look at number 12. The first thing that we need to look at is if it's positive, negative, or zero. And since it's positive, we know that that's going to have two solutions. So we're going to keep the middle the exact same, the x minus 3, x minus 3. I know one needs to be a negative 11 and the other needs to be a positive 11. And now we just follow the rules of Sadman, okay? We have to add 3 to both sides. And we get x equals negative 8. And on the other side, we have to add 3 to both sides. And we get x equals 14. Okay, so our answer to this is x equals negative 8 or 14. And if you want to go off to the side and do a quick check, you can. Okay, negative 8 minus 3. Well, the negative 8 minus 3, that gives us negative 11. And the absolute value of negative 11 is 11. And you can do that with any of the problems, okay? Okay, number 13. Always start by looking at what it equals, okay? And since it equals a positive, that means there are going to be two answers to this, okay? So the inside of the absolute value stays 100% exactly the same. And now we're going to have it equal to a negative 9 and a positive 9. Okay? And now it's just solving. You guys should be able to do this by yourself. Okay? So I'm going to pause the video. I want you to solve this yourself and then tell me the two answers for x. Okay? Good luck. Okay, for that, once you do all the work, you should be getting that x equals negative 1 or positive 8. Okay, number 14, I want to see if you guys can do this all on your own, okay? We know that it's a positive, so we're going to have two solutions. Remember when you set it up that the inside of the absolute value looks exactly the same, and it's going to you're going to set it equal to a positive 7 and a negative 7. Okay, so all on your own. Good luck. Okay, and there's all your work. You should be getting an x equals negative 2 or 4/5. Moving on to 15. Remember, the first thing that we always want to look at is what it equals. And it equals negative. So when it equals a negative, we know that it's no solution. Okay? So I'm just going to rewrite it right here. No solution, because we can't have an absolute value equaling a negative. Okay, number 16. Taking a look at 16, what's it equal? Well, it equals 0. Okay, and when it equals 0, we know that we're only going to have one solution. So I take exactly what's in the absolute value and set it equal to 0. Okay, and now we just solve like we would any other problem. We subtract 8 to both sides, and we get 2/3 x equals negative 8. And to get rid of a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, and if you need to take out your calculators to figure that out, we have negative 8 times 3/2. And we get negative 12. So we would write it out that x equals negative 12. Okay, number 17. If you take a look at it, we've got a positive. So that means we're going to have two solutions. want you guys to pause the video and try this one out. Good luck. Okay, there's the answer for that one. We get -9 or 36. If you need assistance with that, you need to come in and see Ms. Carranza or myself. Okay? All right, 2 more. Number 18, all on your own. Please pause the video and good luck. Okay, hopefully that one didn't take you too long. You should have noticed that it equaled a -7. And remember, whenever it equals a negative, our answer is no solution. Okay, 19, one more, all on your own. Pause the video. Good luck. Okay guys, and when you're done solving that, you should get that x equals 3/2. Now, if you had any questions on some of those last ones that we didn't show any of the work, and you didn't get those answers, you need to come in and see Ms. Carranza or myself. We would love to help you out. That's our job. Okay? Now, your homework is on the bottom. The next part, 1.7 practice. You only have to do 1 through 12. You don't have to do all of those. They're all the same. Okay? So 1 through 12, we have mixed answers on the bottom. If you have any questions, come and find us. Otherwise, that's going to be it for Algebra 1, Unit 1.7 Notes, Part 1. Thanks for watching.